So back here where I left off, we're now going to talk about the last step that you could use to refine your selections. And then just as a little bit of review, so some techniques for how you can manipulate these selections once they're on different layers. So let's say I want to reproduce this layer where I have the second finger. So again, Control J, and you should know that because I keep saying that in all my videos. And then if you haven't checked out under Edit, Transform, there are a lot of really good options here. So these are to make a transformation to just the object on the layer. Back in week 1 or week 2, I talked about how you could rotate your entire canvas, and that would be all of the layers. But what if you want to target just a single object, just a single layer? So that's Edit, Transform. So here, for example, I could flip this horizontally. I could go to Edit, Transform, flip it vertically. Okay. I can also do Control T, which would allow me to rotate it and to scale it. Now, you do not want to make your images larger, that is resampling. You could make it a tiny bit, like 10% larger, and it might be okay, but don't go beyond that. After that, it's going to look pixelated, and that's not going to be good for your project. So the general rule is you can scale things, making them smaller. So I'm going to cancel that selection, and then just again, Edit, Transform, Scale is one way you can get that bounding box. Again, I'm going to cancel, or I can use the keyboard shortcut Control T, and I get that same bounding box. To lock your proportions so you don't distort anything, you want to hold the Shift key down and click and drag. If I don't hold the Shift key down, you see what's happening? That is not a good way to work with your editing your selections. It's going to look pretty horrible. So hold the Shift key down and only grab from a corner. Even holding the Shift key down, if I grab from a side, I still end up distorting it. And if you're happy with your transformation, then you hit the check mark. If you're not, then you hit the cancel. So I'm going to say I'm happy with it. And if I'm not happy with it, I go up to my history panel and I'm going to step back to the original before I did the transformation. So again, Edit, Transform, there are lots of pretty interesting things that you can work with here that might be very useful for this project. Perspective, so if I wanted to make it seem like this finger was getting smaller going into the distance, I can work with that one. So for every single one of those transformations, I have to either cancel it or commit to it before I can go on. You can see like everything else is grayed out. I can't do anything until I either cancel or commit. All right, so back to selections here. I'm going to turn off all those layers, go back to the picture of the face, make sure I'm selected on that layer, and I'm going to zoom in again on the lips, and I'll take my quick selection tool and again go and make a selection around her mouth. But this time, instead of using, or maybe not instead of, but before I even get to the stage where I go to select and mask, I'm going to come over here to my toolbar and I'm going to choose this option that's all the way at the bottom, and that's called Edit in Quick Mask Mode. This looks kind of familiar to one of the modes that I saw when we went up to select and mask, right? So this is a non-destructive means to edit, and I think it's a really nice way to do it because you get to do it with the paintbrush. So for this to work, I have to make sure that my foreground and background colors are black and white. I can switch between either one. I'll explain what they do, but it has to be with these colors. If you have any other colors here, then quickly grab your black and white from over here. I'm going to take my paintbrush tool, and I'll be painting with black. So painting with black is the equivalent to painting with red. So red indicates an area that is not selected. So I'm going to make my brush small, and I'm going to paint inside of her mouth. Now remember, all I did was make a selection that outside of her mouth with the quick selection tool. I didn't use the takeaway option for the selection tool to take away any parts of the selection like I did in the previous video. So okay, so I'm just going inside. I'm going to switch back to the normal mode by clicking again on the Quick Mask button, and you can see how I got those marching ants there, and also how I missed a little spot. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to make sure I really paint over that area. I might need to make my brush a little bit larger. Okay, so what I'm doing when I'm painting red is I'm taking away from my selection. So this will become the non-selected area. So I go in there, and it's just, I think, a really nice way to work because you can adjust the size of your brush and you can make a lot of refinements here. So I can kind of soften the edge of her lip here, kind of go around the corner. It's very helpful if you're also very zoomed in. And what if I accidentally went like this? I'm going to make an accident here. We'll go back over to my normal mode. You can see how that affected my selection. Go back to quick mask mode. I'm now going to switch and paint in white. So when I paint in white, this is the area, and I want to make sure my opacity is at 100%. This is the area that will now become part of the selection. Okay, so I paint in white. Anything that I can see, this is my selection. Then I paint in black. Those are the parts that I'm taking away from my selection. All right, so now I go back over to my normal mode, and that's my selection. And so now if I want to continue on, let's say I wanted to add a feather or I wanted to smooth it, I don't have that option up here because I'm in a paintbrush. All I need to do is take any one of my selection tools. It doesn't matter which one it is, any one of them. And I get that option for select and mask. And I can come up here and I can do the same things that I was doing in the last video. I could shift, I could smooth it, I could add a tiny feather if I wanted, I could shift the edge, any one of those. And then I'm going to click OK. And now I can do my Control J. And now I have a pretty nicely refined selection. All right, so that pretty much covers between these 3 videos all of the things that I'd like you to be doing for this next project. I'm looking to see that you are refining your selections, that they look a little bit better than just simply using the selection tool and cutting and pasting, but that you've softened them perhaps, or that you've used the quick mask mode to be able to go in and to really get the details. All right, have fun with these tools.